Now we're at the final video in this Instagram section of the developer course, and we'll be focusing on viewing photos posted by other users. So this is definitely one I'm going to set as a challenge. We've got our familiar user list and a new title notice up there. See if you can figure out how to do that. We also have a new little feature to allow users to log out. So I definitely recommend adding that in. And then when we log back in again, if we click on a user who's posted a photo, then we'll see that photo and of course all their others flowing below. Note I'm using a vertical linear layout here to display all the images, and I suggest you do the same. One thing that you will need to work out is how to add image views to the app. We haven't set up individual image views for the potentially many pictures that people will post here, so we need to create one each time, and that's something you'll need to figure out how to do. Of course, if you can't figure it out, don't worry, just follow along with the video and I'll show you how it's done. So that will take us to the end of our Instagram app. So I wish you the best of luck. Time to pause the video and give it a shot. Go for it. Alright, hope that went well. I'm going to start with a new activity to view our users' feeds. So we'll look for the gallery and go for our usual empty activity. And I'm going to call this user feed activity. There we go. And I'll start by using, as I mentioned, the vertical linear layout. There we go, and we'll go for a full width and height, and I'll even go so far as to get rid of the padding in the relative layout. Just get rid of that. To make it stretch to the very edge of the screen. Okay, then let's give it an ID. Just scroll down to the bottom, viewer properties, and then we'll just call it linear layout. And let's just start by seeing how we can add an image to that linear layout programmatically. So first off, let's create a linear layout to reference that. And then we're going to create a new image view. Call it image view, and this is going to be a new image view, so we're not finding it by its ID anymore, we're creating it within the application context. And then we take our image view and we set a few basic layout parameters. So set layout params. And then we want a new view group dot layout params, and then you can see it's looking for width and height there. So for width we'll choose match parent, so it's going to be full width of the screen, and then height I'll choose wrap content, so that should make it full width of the screen and a proportional height. And then we set the image drawable So later on we'll be setting a bitmap, but for now, just to see how it works, we'll set the image drawable, and we've only got one drawable here, so we'll use that, Instagram logo.png. So to access that, we use get resources.get drawable, and then the ID, so r.drawable.Instagram logo. And then finally, we add that to our linear layout. So we're going to add a view and then add the image view. All right, so that's how we programmatically add an image view and then fill it with an image to our linear layout. In order to access that, we're going to need to be able to click on an item in the user list, so one of the users, and then jump to the user feed activity. So let's just set up that code over in user list activity. So we're going to do that in on create, which is down here. So let's do it just where we define our user list view. So user list view dot set on item click listener, and a new adaptive view on item click listener. And we want to set up an intent to go to the user feed activity. So an intent, which will be a new intent using the application context. And we want to jump to user feed activity dot class. We don't need to know right now which user the user clicked on, but we will definitely need that later on. So let's add that in while we're here. So intent.put extra. I'll call it username. And then we're going to access the usernames array list, and we want to get the one that was clicked on, and that's this I here. There we go. So that will pass on the username, and then we just need to start activity for the intent. All right, so let's take a look. We should now find that when we tap on any username in the user list activity, it will jump to the user feed activity, which will then dynamically create an image view, populate it with the Instagram logo, and display that to the user. Let's take a look. Okay, so let's try this out. We'll tap on Michael there, and there we go. We've got our Instagram logo as we wanted. Terrific. So now we want to update this code so that instead of showing the Instagram logo, it shows the feed, i.e. the photos posted by that user. So let's start by getting the user ID that our user has selected. So we want an intent, which is going to be the intent that was used to get to the user feed. And then we'll need to know the username that was selected. So let's create a string to reference that. I'll call it active username. And this is going to be intent.get string extra. And the string we're looking for is username. And one small change I'm going to make here is, rather than have Parse starter project at the top there, I'm going to have the username that's been selected so that we know who we're looking at. And we can do that very easily using set title. So I'm going to use set title and then active usernames feed. So that should set the title to the feed of the user that's been selected. I'll just run that and make sure that's working before we go any further. And here we go. So let's tap on Michael. And then we get Michael's feed at the top there. And of course I can go back and view Tommy's feed as well. Great. Now we need to set up a parse query to get all the images posted by that user. So it's a parse query on parse objects, call it query, and it's going to be a new parse query on parse objects, and the class that we want to query is the image class. There we go. And we want to find all the images by the username that the user tapped on. So we'll set where equal to, and we want to set the username equal to that user. So remember, we've got a field here called username. So we'll set username to be equal to active username. And we also want to put the newest ones at the top. So let's use query.order by descending. And then you will have noticed that we've got a created at dates there that we can use to order these by date. We could also use the updated at timestamp, but we're not planning to edit these, so these are essentially the same for us. So we'll stick with created at. Okay, so that's our query. Let's run it. So query.find in background, and then we'll have a new find callback. And then when it's done, as usual, we'll check for E being null. And then we'll check to see if objects.size is greater than 0. And then we'll loop through the objects variable, which will be a list of parse objects. So let's create a parse object called object for each of those. And then we need to get the file, i.e. the image over here that was created, and download that. So we do that using parse file. We're going to create a file which will be a parse file, and we're going to get that from object.get, and then the field we want to get is image. And now the file itself is not actually downloaded yet. We have to do that separately. So we use file.get data in background with a new get data callback. And you can see this returns a byte array called data. So let's check to see if E is null. And we'll also check that the byte array is not null. And if that's the case, we'll create a bitmap, which I'll call bitmap, from the bitmap factory. And we're going to decode our byte array using data starting at 0 and keeping going throughout the whole length of data. Alright, so now we've got our image. So now we're going to create our image view. So I'm going to copy this code up here to do that. And I'll just move our linear layout definition to the top of our onCreate method so we can access it here as well. And in order to do that, it will need to be a final. So all we need to change here is that instead of setting the image drawable to image view, we're going to set the image bitmap to bitmap. Simple as that. So that should do the trick. You're welcome to put in a few messages here. So for example, if the user doesn't have any photos in their feed, it might be nice to pop up a small message saying this feed is currently empty, or to give a user an error message if indeed E is not null. But that's reasonably straightforward. I'll leave that for you to do if you want to. For now, I'm going to cheat slightly and change the username of this posted image to Michael, so that I don't have to fuss about with logging in as a new user and then viewing Rob's photos. So we should be able to now click on Michael and view that lovely image that we stored from the camera earlier on. So let's tap on Michael, and there we go. So that image is at the top. Obviously, if there were more images, they'd flow on down the screen. Alright, so we're pretty much there with our basic Instagram functionality. The one thing I'm going to add before we consider this done is a logout button. So at the moment, our app is a little bit incomplete because the user can't log out. So let's add in a logout button to our menu. So let's open up our menu. And we'll do it in the text view. So we'll add an item with a title of logout and an ID of logout. Okay, and then we've already got the menu inflator methods up here, so I just need to check here to see if item.getItemID is equal to r.id.logout. Then we want to do two things. Firstly, we want to log the user out, which is very easy. So parse user.logout. And then we want to jump back to our main activity so that the user can log in again if they want to. So we'll do that with an intent. New intent using the application context, and we want to jump to main activity dot class, and then we're just going to start that activity. And while we're here, I did just notice as we were looking at the app that it still says Parse Starter Project up there, which isn't great. So let's change that here to set title. So we'll set this to user feed, and over in main activity we'll set the title to Instagram. Alright, so let's have a final check and see if our logout button works as desired. And here we go. So let's log ourselves out. And there we go. We're back to the main Instagram screen. And then we can log back in if we want to. Switch over to login mode. And there we go. And we of course can view the feeds again if we want to. And there it is. Excellent. So that takes us to the end of our Instagram app, and you've now learned a huge amount about setting up Parse Server on AWS, working with the data browser and the EC2 management console, as well as of course actually building apps using Parse for login and sign up and data storage as well. In the next section, we're going to take this even further and make another popular cloud-based app, and that is Uber.